Good evening and welcome to the regularly scheduled town board meeting. Today is June 14th, 2022, and we will be conducting our regular business meeting. I would like to extend my congratulations to the graduates of the 2022 class of Trumansburg who are, I believe as we speak, enjoying a parade. And I know none of them will be watching our meeting currently, but they, like everybody else, can watch it after the fact if so interested on the town's YouTube channel. May I have a roll call vote, please? A roll call, not vote.
Mr. Boggs.
Present.
Ms. Olson.
Present.
Ms. Bouchard.
Present.
Ms. Marino is joining remotely.
Present.
So we are going to move on to approval of the meeting agenda. The only item, if possible, it would be great to add is a resolution, which is actually in your resolution packet. It just failed to get on the agenda, which is a resolution acknowledging Tom Major's significant service to our community. He recently passed away. Are there any other changes desired?
No.
Then
No,
if it's, are we okay with that addition?
Yes.
Then if so, I would accept a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Thank you very much. Motion carries. And I would like to ask that because our attorney is present, I would like Mr. Van Wy to please clarify remote attendance at our meeting, please. And who can and cannot vote and under what conditions, please.
Yeah, so the executive order authorizing the boards to meet remotely expired by its terms on, I think it was June 8th. So earlier this month, just about a week ago. And because that authorization has expired, the default rules for attendance by video conferencing now apply unless the town has adopted the new authorization that the recent state budget allows, which requires a local law be adopted by the town and then adoption of a policy or procedure setting forth the circumstances by which board members can attend remotely. And I believe the town has not yet adopted that local law at this point. And so there isn't really authorization for board members to attend remotely unless the town has published notice that of the physical location where the town board member would be attending from, letting the public know that they have the right to also attend wherever that town board member is located. The new authorization, or the new method that state law is going to allows complete remote attendance by up to 2 members of the board and prohibiting the public from attending those remote locations with the board members. So that's the kind of the key there. But as of now, anyway, without those authorizations, without the new remote authorization in place or a proper notice of this meeting specifying the physical location from which the board member is attending, that board member unfortunately can't participate in the voting of items on the agenda or any other motions brought up at the meeting tonight.
Mr. Van Wy, would you clarify whether or not the policy that the board adopted, I believe last July, sometime around there, or September, to allow remote access provided with notice is a legal functional policy to date?
Well, it should be, as long as it complies with what the prior requirements were before the COVID emergency, or once the town adopts a local law authorizing the new methodology, then of course that would also apply to it potentially.
Thank you.
Question?
Yeah.
So you said last July? Because I thought.
I was sometime last year when we.
I think it was August. August
Oh, okay,
21st.
because I thought there was something earlier. I remember because when Nancy was out, and I think I used it once when I was out. I thought there was something earlier than that maybe as well.
It's posted on our website. I don't
We
remember the
amended
exact.
our current policy last August.
Okay, so there is a couple of them. Okay, that's what I was just trying
Yeah.
to make sure.
I used because I was meeting remotely, but in the supervisor's office. So I was physically in the building,
Right.
but I was meeting remotely because we were still
But
trying to
but that
socially
was under
distance.
the COVID.
No, there was a gap between open meetings. There
Okay,
was a gap last summer. And when open meetings went back into effect, and yet there were those of us who didn't
you're
necessarily
right,
feel
right, I remember
comfortable.
that. Okay.
So we amended our policy at that junction to allow a majority to meet in
Okay, and
person,
that was the one last summer.
and that was on last summer.
Okay,
Yep.
all right,
Yep.
thank you.
So it was legal then.
Uh-huh.
And it sounds like it continues to be legal. Could also choose to amend the policy further. Yes.
So I guess I would say to clarify what sounds, because I'm not familiar exactly with what that policy was last year. So if it said everybody would be in the town hall, but in different rooms, that's okay, as long as you allow the public to potentially attend all those rooms also.
No, we allowed it. So with the public notification of the location, I just happened to be in town hall. So we published that it was my address was just in the next room over, and nobody ever came to sit with me. So, okay,
So-
thank you.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
So, Nate, so if the town adopts a local law that authorizes the new state methodology, then how is that different from what our policy currently is? We would then not have to publish where the people are? Is that the only difference?
Well, there's two differences. One is what you just said, you don't have to publish the remote location, and you don't have to allow the public to attend from that remote location. So like, for example, under the old remote access, which existed pre-COVID, you had to publish both the address and you had to allow the public to attend if they showed up wherever you happen to be broadcasting from. New law, you don't have to do either of those things. There are some administrative additional burdens on the town. You have to keep the video recordings for 5 years. You have to make it accessible on your website. You have to produce a transcript of the meeting, when people ask for it. And so, that could be potentially quite expensive. The new version of the law, you don't have to do it. And if you do allow it, then you can only authorize even the remote attendance by those two people, and under extraordinary circumstances, which is not a defined term under the state law. It's up to your local policy, what you folks decide constitutes extraordinary. And I think everybody would agree being sick is probably extraordinary. Probably going to Florida for vacation is not. And there's a bunch of things in between that reasonable minds may end up differing about, or you might end up having a lot of agreement amongst the board, but that's a policy discussion to have.
And that would be part of the local law. That would have to be specified in the local law that we made that adopted the state's policy.
Nope, it would just be, so the local law would say you can use this video conferencing ability authorized under Public Officers Law 103A, and the town board will adopt a policy to enact, or the regulations regarding this authorization. There's from the Committee on Open Government, a draft policy, which I've been meaning to send to Caitlin, and I will do that. And then there's also the Association of Towns has issued a model local law.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Nate. Okay, let's move on to privilege of the floor. Is there anyone in the public or in a remotely attending who wishes to address us? Please, I'm going to be keeping time. We're going to limit 3 minutes per person this evening. So, Mr. Wordus, did you want to address us?
No, I have a second, so go ahead.
I'm John Wordus, I'm your town historian, in case you didn't know. I'm standing here because I can see Ms. Marino both on the screen. A couple of weeks ago, copies of this booklet were placed in the board member's mailbox, and you may have them in the packet. Some of you may have picked them up, some of you may have read them. The title is The Gayocahono People in the Cuba Lake region. It's a brief history. It was written by a local individual, Kurt Jordan, who's also at Royal University. It was commissioned by the Tompkins County Historical Commission, of which I'm a member. It because it's the only book really written about Cayuga Nation, the group of previous people that dominated the area in which we live. It also is important because there is a conflict within that group as to who the leadership is. Kurt deals with that to some extent and presents at least one side of the story. And so I think you may be aware that different other legislative groups have been asked to weigh in on that conflict between the various aspects of the Cuyahoga Hono. So I just thought you might want to be prepared for that. The book is very extensive. When you get to page 42, the next 6 or 7 pages, Kurt writes about the Sullivan expedition. It turns out that Kurt and I have slightly different viewpoints as to aspects of the Sullivan expedition. And I had written my version of what I think was going on. And I shared it with Kurt a long time ago, actually. And I've also included a copy of this in your packet of information. I'll be glad to answer questions about it in the future after everybody has had a chance to read it. So I'm running out of time, probably. The second thing is that I'd like to invite you all to a June 25th event, which will be held at the Old County Farm. Last year, the town, through me, secured 3 different historical markers. One of them was for the crematorium, which is what the Cayuga Nature Center used to be. And we had already installed that, and we had an event in November, a rather cold but well-attended day. The remaining 2 are this one for the county home down near Jacksonville, and the third one will be the old church, Methodist Church in Jacksonville, which you all will remember. The older church was purchased by the town and then cleaned up and then sold to a private individual who is converting it into a residence and maintaining it as a historic thing. So invite you to the June 25th event. It is being hosted by the 12 tribes of Ithaca, who are providing music and providing refreshments. There'll be some short talks.
Thank you.
They're of a historical nature. Yes, sir.
Who are the 12 tribes?
Who are the 12 tribes? They are a communal group that live in Ithaca.
Are they Native Americans or?
No, they are not Native American.
They're a religious group, aren't they?
They are, I'm not sure if they would want to be all religious groups. I'm a little gun shy these days about putting labels on people. I was quite comfortable with simply saying they're a communal group that live together in one of the old settlement houses in Ithaca.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. That's great to have those. Excellent. Is there anyone else? I was gonna see if there's anyone online. I tend to go back and forth to see if there's anybody online who wished to address us. Oh, I see Marlene's hand. I'm sorry, you're very small on my screen right now.
Myself. I'm also very sick, so I hope you can hear me. My name is Marlene Darfler, and I live at 18 El Dorado Drive in Trumansburg. And as a community member, a grandparent of 4 children who have graciously shared their cold with me, grandparent of 4 children in Trumansburg, and a friend and ally of the LGBTQ plus community, I want to go on record in support of the flag policy draft that's being presented this evening. The discussion around a flag policy has gone on for way too long, and in my opinion, reflects a blatant disrespect for our LGBT neighbors and families. If we claim to be an inclusive community, I think it's high time the board ends this years-long debate and stands up to support the community with this act of flying the pride flag, as does the village of Trumansburg and our surrounding communities. It speaks poorly of the town of Ulysses that after 3 years, this is still in the discussion phase. It's inexcusable. Please pass and adopt this flag policy tonight. Thank you, and I'm not going to be staying on very long, taking my tissues and going back to bed soon, but thank you.
Thank you for making time for us tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Yes, Legislator Corman.
Thank you very much. Is this mic working?
Is it?
Might not be turned on, but you turn it on down below.
No?
Is there any way the people zooming in can see the person talking? Or is that not doable?
If she stands here and faces,
Okay.
that's better.
Well, okay, that's good.
Would you like to come up here? Sure. Then they can catch you on this.
Whoop.
Wait, you could see her where she used to be. You could go back.
Okay, now I see her again. Whoop. Now I don't, okay.
Yeah.
Now I just see Roxanne. Okay. There we go.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Ann Corman, a Tompkins County legislator. And 5 years ago, I was part of an LGBTQ plus group, and we came around to the various municipalities, the 16 municipalities. I think maybe with the county, that's maybe 17. So don't quote me on that. And we asked if municipalities would fly the LGBTQ plus pride flag. There are a number of flags. This one here is the transgender flag. The one that Marlene has is the more traditional one. There's many different flags. You could look up online what they mean. So now within a year or two, we had, I believe, all municipalities except the town of Ulysses agreed that they would fly the pride flag in June, which is LGBTQ plus Pride Month. And also around that time, I was running for office as a county legislator and as an openly gay person, and was very well received in the community. And so it's been disheartening for me to be an out person representing this area and having the largest municipality in my district not be flying this flag or the Black History flag in February, as the county does, and some other municipalities do. I am actually not here today to ask you to pass a flag policy or to fly the pride flag. I'm not going to ask anymore. It's disheartening. It's I can't think of any positive words to say. It's really hard to come back and ask again. So I'm not going to ask again. But I know other people in the community have asked, and I know allies in the community have come out and are here tonight, have emailed you. So I do ask you to do what is the right thing, what is in your hearts. So I ask you to do whatever that is. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to address us? Yes.
I haven't done this before, so please advise me.
Well, if you'd like to stand here so everybody can see you and the mic can pick you up, that would be lovely.
Thank you. Now I'm about to turn on my timer. My name is Vivian Rose. I live at 104 Pennsylvania Avenue in Trumansburg, New York. And I want to start by saying I'm so glad that the town of Ulysses is the age that it is, and that we still have people doing the work of keeping our government running for us and with us. So thank you for that. But then I want to say that as a Trumansburg resident, I'm alarmed by the amount of noise that is coming from events in the town and also from the village. So I'm also bringing this concern to the village.
Specifically, as the board members know from my email today, I was alarmed by the amount of noise that was coming from the fairgrounds on Saturday night, and that did not turn off until I personally went and asked them to turn it off at 11 o'clock at night, from which I could hear the announcer introducing someone at that event, every word of that from my driveway. And when I drove around trying to find out where that noise was so I could go to bed, I found this private event that had rented the fairground, that referred me to fairground staff, of which there weren't any. And finally, the crew member turned it off. My concern is that actually that is zoned special agricultural. It was a private dance studio event. It appears to me that in the time that I've lived in the county, since in the town, that there is a kind of increase of acceptance of the amount of noise that comes from the farmers, from the fairground. And I would like the town to address this by moving the noise ordinance that I see on the website out of draft and into public discussion and conclusion, and looking at what is supposed to be happening on agricultural land that's zoned in that way. So that's my request. I also want to address the flag policy, which I happened to read today, trying to figure out when the next board meeting was. I worked for 23 years at a national park, and we flew flags as required by the federal law. And so I'm curious about what the women's suffrage flag is, because to my knowledge, there isn't a March is Women's History Month. It's not congressionally designated. It has been by executive order. And the women's suffrage flag is actually the celebration of women's suffrage in the United States in August. So Women's History Month was designated as part of the last wave of the women's movement based on a European women's history event, International Women's Day. That's not to say that I don't think that it should be flagged, but I would like to know what we're doing and why. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who'd like to address us? Please come right up.
Hi, my name is Isabella Menina. I'm here today in support of the gay pride flag being flown here. I'm not here on behalf of any groups or organizations. I'm just here to show support as a community member. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to address us? I don't see any additional members of the public online. It looks like everybody here. This is wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to move on to liaison chair reports. I believe Legislator Corman's back up again. Would you like to, do you want to join us at the table for this so you don't have to carry everything? Is that more convenient? Grab your chair. So that everybody can see you.
Okay,
And hear you.
thank you.
Absolutely. Please move anything you need out of the way. I have
Okay.
allergies, not anything else.
Thank you. I do too, so we'll be sneezing hopefully in unison.
Exactly.
So just a couple of things today. At the county, we did remove the mask guidance or the mask advisory that we had as the numbers have gone down. We're in what they call medium risk area now. I totally support, and the county does too, any organization that still wants to have a mask policy, that's still perfectly okay. And I encourage other people too, not to give somebody a hard time if you go into any organization and they still have a policy, or if you are in any place where someone asks you, and we don't know what people's situations are, or they just feel more comfortable, with you wearing a mask. So I'm trying to remember to still carry them with me. But it is good that we are hopefully now headed in a better direction with COVID. For folks who haven't gotten vaccinated yet or need a booster, you can call up your primary doctor. You can call up the
You can
pharmacies.
sit on the bed.
You can get a booster, and then there's a fourth shot now. You can get two. I can't remember what they call that, but a super boosted, I'm making that part up, but so you can get a fourth shot now. And we are still having people in the hospital though, so we are not out of the woods. We still have people that are sick enough that they have to
That whole
be
half was not
hospitalized
in the
for
view.
COVID. So the next thing I want to talk about is the Community Recovery Fund. We have $6.5 million that the county wants to give back to the community, which you've heard me talk about before. I don't have much progress to report this month. The only thing I can say is we thought we were going to have more flexibility with taking some of the ARPA funds, and that's the American Rescue Funds, and from the federal government, and putting them just straight through the county, that we would have more flexibility. As it's turned out, for a number of reasons, ARPA money is going to actually be now more flexible of what we can do to help the community. So we're going to change it to ARPA funds, and we are still working with our consultant who we hired. We don't have the parameters yet set, and we will keep you updated. That's one of our biggest things. We did pass a Pride, LGBTQ plus Pride resolution, as well as Juneteenth proclamation this past week. And for folks that don't know about that, Juneteenth is celebrated every year on June 19th. The county itself is celebrating it on the 20th. And it's actually a conglomeration of various emancipation holidays or celebrations. And if you want to learn more about it, which I just learned a ton more the other day, that was yesterday, from a little a talk we had from a woman who wrote a book about Juneteenth and other Black people who were enslaved, emancipation. So you can go to the Tompkins County Tompkins County YouTube page and look for that talk that was given yesterday. And you will learn a lot more about Juneteenth and people who were enslaved, the emancipation. So it's a really good thing to go watch. It's only an hour. And so we are celebrating that on Monday as our holiday for the county, and county employees. Most of them will get that day off, and everybody that will, or they'll get a different day off. So county offices are closed Monday, just so you know, and our employees now get that paid, a paid day for that. And I think that's about the main things that I had. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Any questions?
No, I think it's wonderful about Juneteenth. We are
Okay.
also celebrating in the town of Ulysses. So
Excellent, and
Yeah.
thank you very much.
thank you. Excellent. I don't see any other chairs present. So I will move on to old business, which is the Camp Barton update. I'm very pleased to report, it's been a few, I would say almost a month and a half probably, or 2 months since there was an update. So I just wanted to keep the public informed about the progress that's going on. There's the village, the town, and the town of Covert recently held a meeting to discuss the kind of the nuts and bolts of what an operating agreement will look like. There was a lot of conversation that had to happen at legal levels to do that, about what's the best structure for an organization. And those discussions were held in conjunction with legal counsel from New York State Parks. And between our attorney and their attorney, and discussions amongst the representatives of the three boards, the working group is moving towards a model that will establish an independent local development corporation with 501c3 status, which would be managed with equal shares by the three municipalities with a board of 6. We're working through the drafting of that, so we don't have anything to share at this point in terms of that side. But there are a lot of benefits to that model, which is we will not be the first grouping of communities to follow this type of model, but we will be the first 3 of our kind in the state to do it. So that's pretty exciting. Normally they don't get such good cooperation between municipalities. So I'm very pleased with that. And then the other part of that is that the state is working through its process. It's not a quick process to acquire land when you're the state. And there are lots of steps, but one of the main steps that has to be completed and has not been completed will be the appraisal process. So it's a complicated process. Obviously, it's a very big property with lots of different facets, and because of the financial value, estimated financial value of it, it requires two different appraisals. And the state has a very simple way of offering a price that they're willing to pay, which is they take the highest of the two. And that's what they offer to the property owner. And so that process has not been completed. An offer has not been made to the property owner, but that's where we are in progress. I think everybody's feeling very optimistic about it. It's probably going to take at least another 12 to 15 months, most likely 15 months, to work through the steps, just because it's complicated. But the good news is that we thought at one point we might have to go through a third-party entity to take acquisition, and then for the state to like going through the land trust would be a common way to do it. But because it's not needed in this case, because of the cooperation with the current property owner, the Boy Scout Council, to work with the state on the process. So they're not needing to turn it over immediately to another entity. So I just wanted to see if the board had any questions. Well, just the board right now. I'm sorry, John. You can ask me afterwards. Yeah.
Why would the board be an even number, not an odd number?
Because there are 3 municipalities, and we want to have 2 representatives.
Right, yeah, makes sense.
And there was not another group we wanted to give a voting
Right.
share to, basically, because each municipality is committing, at least at this phase, of wanting to be equally contributing financially to it. So that's the route. It's unusual, but a majority constitutes 4
Yeah.
in this case. So, Mary, did you have any questions? Okay, great. Okay, moving on to new business. We are actually going to, there's been a request by the highway superintendent to actually table the probationary period, the ending the probationary period for an existing employee early. That is because he's not present, the highway superintendent. So he has asked that we table that for the next meeting. The item after that is declaring the Gradall surplus equipment. Let's see. Going along, it's out of order. I'm sorry. Let's see. Yes, that'd be great.
On page 1 at the bottom.
Oh, there it's not. Yes, sorry. I just missed it.
Oh, just wrong. Okay, be it resolved that the Ulysses Town Board declares that the following equipment belongs to the town, is hereby declared surplus, and can be sent to auction, sold, used in trade for new equipment, or disposed of by the highway superintendent. 1990 Gradall.
Yes. So
Is
they,
that the,
that's the end of it.
Okay.
It's just one item. And it's still he's hoping, Superintendent Stewart is hoping that, it still has some life in it. So like to sell. But it's no longer needed because of the equipment we've invested in the last year.
second, that?
I'll second
It's
that.
just you and me, Mary.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the tag team. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on to a gatekeeper resolution for a consolidated funding application for the comprehensive plan. There is money available through the CFA, the consolidated funding process. This is, wait a minute. I'm sorry, keep going on to the next page. I copied one accidentally. It's on page 2, sorry. It's a New York State Department of State Comprehensive Planning Grant. We know we want to update our comprehensive plan. It would be great if we did not have to use ARPA funding. That's the American Recovery funding. It'd be great if we didn't have to do that. We have that potentially allocated for use, but this would allow us to apply for up to $100,000 there would be a required, if we get it, a 10% local match. And we have the ability internally to complete the grant application. We would probably need a few, probably 10 or less engineering hours to complete the application as well, but the bulk of it would be done in-house, so it would not incur additional expenditure. Is there anyone willing to move that?
I will make that motion.
Is there a second? All in favor, or any any further
Wait.
discussion?
I have a comment, if possible.
Sure.
Okay, so I believe that I brought this up actually at the last meeting to look at, and I think it's under the part of the CFA that is the grouping of climate smart communities actions. And so it requires having a sustainability component to the comprehensive plan. I'm pretty sure from reading through this all. And so I would like to see this resolution, I know that I can't vote on it, be modified a little to include that wording, that aspect to it, to make sure that it's really logged in there, that's what we're gonna do, because that's what the grant is for.
So this is actually a Department of State grant. This is not the one, we were not able to find the one you referenced. So we found Department of State.
Well, I have all of the research on it. I mean, I don't have it here now, but I thought that you were talking about the same one. So I didn't bring it to this meeting, but I guess I'd like to see this put off until the next meeting and look at what the difference between those two types of application is.
Should we
Because
Realistically, I don't think we have time to apply for both.
no, not both, to see which one makes the most sense.
How does the rest of the board feel?
Because I had started working on this other one as I raised at the other meeting, so I didn't know that this was changing to a different type of grant.
Well, I apologize. I didn't receive anything from you about it other than the verbal communication at the last town board meeting. We found this one, and
Right.
this is in the resolution. So,
Right, so I thought we were gonna have a further discussion at this meeting, and I thought it was about that one. I didn't write anything because I didn't know that was required, but I'm just requesting that we wait until the next meeting and look at the difference between the two and which one makes the most sense to apply for.
how does the rest of the board feel? Would you like to wait?
Question.
Yeah.
So this is talking about some culverts.
Oh, that was.
Oh, that's a different one.
That was.
That's a
attached.
different one.
Just look on page 2. That was an accident. It got pulled in from
Oh,
last time.
okay.
Just
Oh.
on page 2.
Are we, is that, we're not gonna cover that one?
Yeah, we already
Okay,
did that
so
one.
this is
We
on
already
line
did that one.
64, correct?
Yes, line 64.
Okay.
Apologies, Mary.
Yep.
And Michael.
So this is for,
To Department of State grant for comprehensive planning services.
Uh-huh.
You can ask up to $100,000 with a 10% match. It's the straightforward,
is this something like Michelle is going to do?
yes.
But there's also,
Go ahead.
well, I just don't, there's also one that is particular, it's from the Climate Smart Communities program, which we're a climate smart community of, and we would have, I think, a very good chance of getting, and it requires including a sustainability component, which I think is a really important thing to do anyway. That's what I brought up the last time that I'd started doing research on, and I thought we were going to discuss at this meeting. So I didn't understand that this is a totally different one from the Department of State. So what I'm asking, since I am not prepared with all that information right now because I thought it was the same thing, I'm asking that the board who can vote wait until the next meeting and look at the two different ones and decide which one makes the most sense that we have the best chance of getting and to go for.
I understand what you're saying. I don't think we're confused. I appreciate your words. I'm just asking for the other members of the board, their opinions on it.
Right, but I'm just explaining it to them because Michael seemed confused about it.
Yeah, I was reading the wrong one. Yeah, I don't have I know these things take a long time. You know,
Yeah,
it's-
I
it's
mean,
a-
2 weeks.
Well, it's a time eater for whoever's client needs, that's why I
Right,
was asking about.
Right,
Michelle.
and I mean, it's gonna
Because if
be,
you've committed Michelle to it, then
yes, but I mean, Michelle
Can
will
I-
do it. I have, excuse, please just a moment. I have not committed Michelle to it in the sense that she has not started working on
Oh,
it,
well,
because
yeah,
if the
no, I
board
understand
didn't
that.
want to do
Right,
it,
right.
then it would obviously, but that would be the intention, is it would be a staff project that she would undertake. Mary, did you have any other
So
thoughts?
I was gonna say, I would be willing to wait 2 weeks to look more closely at the other planning grant.
Roxanne, did you have
I-
any thought?
I did. I would be happy to meet with Michelle and look at the two different ones and talk with her about it, what, and bring that information to the board, the different aspects of both of them. Because I did look into that other one some, and I would like to be engaged in this, as I said in the email, because I have experience with it. And anyway, I'd be happy to meet with Michelle and talk with her about the two different things, and we could bring that information to the board for the next meeting.
It'd be wonderful if you could send the information in advance so that we could compile it, because I think the next meeting is our last meeting to take any action, because it's due in July. So.
Right,
won't-
it's fine, but I will make an
Excuse me,
appointment
I'm
with
so sorry,
Michelle.
but can I please finish what I'm saying? I'm so sorry, but.
I
what
thought
I'd
you
like-
were finished. There's a time lag, I'm sorry,
Okay.
here.
Okay. Okay, then we will, with the rest of the board's acceptance, we will table this for the next meeting. Is that all right? Motion to
Yeah.
table?
Yeah, one last question. So how big would the Climate Smart Communities grant be? Do you have any idea? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I'm pretty sure it's also 100,000, which is up to 100,000, which is why I was confused that there's another one. So it's the same. 100,000.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. We are going to move on to,
Did you do a motion to table for somebody?
I actually-
Did you?
No.
I asked if there was a motion to table.
Okay.
Which
Well, I'll
is the
make-
question.
Motion to
make-
table?
Second.
Excellent.
All right.
And, yeah.
All right. You
Do
got
we
a motion,
vote?
I get a
Do we
second?
vote on table? No, I didn't think
No.
so. Thank you.
Okay.
for clar-
Yeah.
I do.
Oh,
And all those in favor to table?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are moving on to line 77. A resolution to set the rate of pay for temporary deputy clerk. Resolved that the Ulysses Town Board authorizes a rate of pay of $20 an hour for 20 hours a week for the recently appointed deputy clerk, Rose Hanson.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
No, I
a move, so
Well, you
moved.
moved
Okay,
it,
I guess I did. I didn't, yes, but that sounds great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are moving along. Okay, and we are going to move on to the two-year contract for the GASB 75 valuation reporting for the fiscal years of 2021 and 2022. This is something that we didn't used to have to do. The town didn't actually pay for it. It used to be part of the benefit package belonging to the healthcare consortium. But that, when things with the healthcare consortium changed and I guess in 2020, we had to, or in 2021 is when it was decided, because they did it for 2020. We now have to absorb the cost of doing this reporting. So I will make a motion. Whereas the GASB 75 ruling requires municipalities to report on other post-employee benefits in a particular manner, as well as a variety of other benefit-related calculations and reporting. And whereas an RFP for GASB 75 reporting services for the two-year reporting cycle was posted on the New York State Contract Reporter, and whereas 3 quotes were submitted by reputable vendors, and whereas Armory Associates, who is the sole vendor to have provided these services in the past, submitted a quote for services, and whereas there was not a significant difference between the second lowest bidder, Armory Associates, and the lowest bidder, and whereas given the insignificant difference between the 2 low bids, per the procurement policy, a determination has been made that contracting with Armory Associates will achieve savings through more efficient use of staff time, given their familiarity with the town of Ulysses. Now therefore be it resolved that the Ulysses Town Board authorizes the town supervisor to enter a 2-year contract for GASB 75 reporting services with Armory Associates.
Second.
Any discussion?
I had a question.
Sure.
So what was the difference between the two bids?
They're in the packet. I didn't print it off for you, but it was provided.
Will that table be included in the resolution?
Would you like it?
Not necessarily, I'm just curious.
It's
I have a
not
question.
currently, but it will be in the board, it will be in the, can we include it in the minutes?
So it's like $100.
Yes,
Yeah, okay. That's pretty
insignificant, yeah.
Although so Armory Associates provided it to the consortium?
Yeah, so we worked with them, but we just didn't pay the bill.
Oh, I see.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
So any further discussion? Questions, comments? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so moving on to item F, specifying advisory committees that can meet fully remotely. There is I had Mr. Van Wy look into regarding to open meetings is whether or not purely advisory committees that have no voting power to implement anything in the town, that who purely serve to make recommendations to the full board, and the board can use or completely ignore those recommendations. They are not, according to Mr. Van Wy, do not have to fulfill all the requirements of open meetings because they have no power to take action. They don't have to. And it's been, I think, wonderfully flexible for the volunteers who are serving in purely voluntary capacities to be able to attend meetings remotely. Attendance is up with remote access being possible. And it, frankly, after 2+ years, it's really become a norm for a lot of groups to be able to do this. This does not require that they do it. It doesn't prevent any committee from meeting in person, but it does provide flexibility to be able to meet fully remotely. The committees that are, again, purely advisory include Conservation Sustainability, the Youth Commission, the Salo Habitat Committee, the Tree Advisory Board, the Finance Committee, the IT Cyber Committee. And so it has been the resolution I put forward, and I will move, recommends that they are allowed to continue to meet remotely through December 31st of this year. And then I'm recommending that I'm moving that the town board reviews and designates committees eligible for fully remote meetings in accordance with New York State open meetings law at the annual organizational meeting. Because the committees that exist in the town might change on a year-to-year basis. And, there might be, the town board might have an interest in having even a fully advisory board meet in person and not be able to meet fully remotely. So that's the policy that's being proposed, or the resolution that's being proposed.
Would this apply to the ag committee?
If the ag committee existed, we could always add them. They would certainly be an advisory committee. I did not include them because they're not a functional committee at the moment.
Yeah, right.
But again, right, they can't take any action.
Uh-huh. Okay. Did you move it?
I did move it.
Okay,
Yep.
second.
Any further discussion? Comments? Okay, then I will call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. And that moves us on we added, I was trying to get through all of the business. If we could add the item number, it's on line 47. We did add it to the agenda, recognizing the local lifetime achievements in youth recreation by Mr. Tom Major. I would like to move this statement. Mr. Major, for 5 decades, was highly important in local youth activities. And the Youth Commission requested that the town issue a statement in recognition of his recent passing. And so I'd like to just quickly read his and I's time. Unfortunately, I did have a chance to meet him once, but we did not overlap very much because he was transitioning out of working in youth recreation in Trumansburg as I was coming onto the board. Mr. Major, or Tom Major, recently passed away at the age of 84 after dedicating his life's work to youth sports and recreation. Tom spent 35 years as a PE teacher, coach, and athletic director at Trumansburg schools. He also served as the Village of Trumansburg Recreation Director for many decades and worked closely with the Youth Commission to deliver summer camp and sports camp opportunities to generations of Trumansburg youth. While the Trumansburg Ulysses Summer Camp continues to grow and evolve in its present form, it owes its mission to serve our local kids with safe and fun recreational activities to Mr. Major and the guidance he provided for all those years. Many T-Bird kids went on to become campers, to camp counselors, to professionals and volunteers working with young people during his tenure. His impact on this community's youth recreation programs and sports culture for the last 60 years is a credit to Tom's love for kids and his belief that through sports and recreation, life's lessons are learned in valuable ways that create a lasting and positive impression on all who participate. So I'd like to move recognition.
Second.
I think we can move to any further discussion, and I will let Carissa pick that. Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Yes, thank you for doing that.
Paul is actually the creator of the resolution, not the resolution, but of the statement. So I really appreciate that he did that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. So we can move on to the discussion of the draft flag policy. That was, I have, was in your packets, and I have provided a printed draft for you as well. Michael, do you need a copy?
No.
Okay.
So is there a flag that flies at the town bar?
Not to the best of my knowledge. Now that I say that, no, right?
I
No.
don't think so. Okay.
I'm not aware of one. So I can let the rest of the board know that this policy has been reviewed by our attorney who is present, if he has anything he wants to say about it. I did not reinvent the wheel. I did a combination of the policy used by the town of Caroline, because it's a town policy that had some good foundational language, as well as the county policy. So Roxanne, yes. I'm sorry, we can't hear you.
Okay, sorry. I'm very much in favor of this. As you know, I was the one who initiated having this discussion tonight with the county's policy. So I just have a couple of questions related to the county policy. I hadn't seen the Caroline one, but I'm wondering why the Haudenosaunee, I can never say it right, the six natives flag is not included in ours. It was in the counties. I just was wondering if there was a reason that we don't have that one.
The board can add or amend or eliminate any flag they choose.
Is there a month?
There's not a month associated specifically.
No,
So
but
that's my knowledge.
if you looked at the one that I originally sent out to initiate this discussion, it has the list that the county uses, and the Haudenosaunee, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce it right, Six Nations flag it's one of the only ones, well, that we didn't include. There's a couple of other ones like the county flag, but that's not included in this these flags that are supposed to celebrate art and culture and diversity and inclusion. So, and there's a lot about that all the time now. There's always a land acknowledgement every time anything happens at Cornell, for example. And so I'm just wondering why we wouldn't want to have that.
I think a good starting point would be to find out if people are interested, people on the board are interested in having a flag policy in the first place. I think that then we can move on to discuss how flags would be flown. and how flags would be approved, and then finally what flags are on the list, if this is the direction and a structure that is of interest to the rest of the board. So are there any thoughts?
Well, I personally am not a big flag person, just in general. But I support having a flag policy because, I think that it's important to support diversity and inclusion and equity. I would be in favor of including the Haudenosaunee, I think that's how you say it, Haudenosaunee flag. At least I know what it is. I'm not sure about women's suffrage. I just looked it up. It's like, it's a little like the
The village flew it.
same color as the Ukraine flag.
Yeah,
actually.
the village actually flew theirs during
Yeah.
April.
But so it's a little less known, I think. Maybe it's not in some circles. Yeah, I mean, I had a little question in my mind as I was riding my bike the other day. I went by somebody's house and they had a flag that said, "All lives matter." So I started thinking about this. If somebody came up to us and said, you should fly this flag. And the thing is, all lives do matter, really, but that's not, that's not the point of this flag, It has some underlying tensions, I guess, that would make it something that, I wouldn't want to fly. So I just, I don't think that would be a big deal, but it was just something that occurred to me.
So
If somebody came up and said, well, I think we should fly this all lives matter flag.
So the way
Um,
the policy is written is that the only additional flags that could be added to the list have to be done by an amendment to this policy. So you would require 3 board members to vote to add whatever flag
Yeah,
to the policy as one of the designated flags. But in all fairness too, in all fairness too, 3 board members at any point could decide to fly a flag, right? Like the board could just vote that we're gonna put up a flag. There's nothing in New York state law that would prohibit us from doing that. I think the point of having a policy is to be, and I voted for flying the pride flag 2 years ago. And we didn't have the votes at that point to do it. I think it's better to have a policy in place before flags are flown, because then it makes the parameters of what we're doing very clear. So the intention behind this is to have a policy to explain where those flags can be appropriately displayed. For the public who hasn't noticed our flagpole, we have a really dinky short flagpole. So this proposal would actually be to fly the flag off of the sign, the town hall sign, as opposed to on the flagpole itself, because our flagpole is not a traditional size for a flagpole. And short of changing that at any given point, I think it would be I personally thought it would look a little bit weird. So I proposed that we fly it off of the sign in front of our building. So
like with a bracket.
Yeah.
Like
so
the village does.
right, yeah. Because otherwise we might have a dangling flag, and I don't think the would be the right intention. So I certainly have no problem adding an additional flag to it. The Haudenosaunee flag. Did I say that correctly?
Well, yeah, it's on the show. Yeah,
Haudenosaunee,
a few
thank you.
dialects of it, but perhaps.
Um,
the word is-
Trying to
You
say
know
it
how to
properly.
say
We have a very difficult time in finding ways to recognize and honor the previous people. So I think I have an image in my mind of the Haudenosaunee flag, and it includes the various clans that existed back in time. So
Isn't it
to all my
the,
professional opinion, I would add it to your list.
Isn't it that purple flag with the rock on it? Is that
Well,
what-
maybe I've seen.
That's the one I'm-
That's what I, would-
Yeah,
that's what I think it is.
That's the one my son studied in 4th grade this year. So. Michael, what are your thoughts?
Well, so I'm not in favor of a flag policy, and I'm not in favor of flying. I'm going to classify these all as special interest flags. The minor issue would be clerk time in managing this, because the clerk, looking for help, and it's an extra burden on them, but I'm speaking for somebody else. This gets into, as we're discussing tonight, who should we fly? And there are, if you look on your phone, there's actually hundreds of flags. So it just, to me, it opens a can of worms. And, and as the board changes, the flag that ought to be flown will change with whatever that person's special interest is. The other issue I have with it is this happens to be the courthouse. And so I think we should be remain as neutral. And to me, I've always said that the US flag and the New York State flag includes everybody. And so as somebody's coming into the court, if they happen to be, whatever the crime they committed, if a flag is out there that has something to do with the crime they committed, could be an issue. Because it may reflect on the judge sitting in the dais, that if he gets a fair trial. So that was one of them. And then getting to the policy that we have here, some of it seems contradictory. That in number 4, it says flags approved to fly under the, on the official flagpole are, and then in the subsequent paragraphs, it says flags may be flown. So are we talking about flags may be flown or flags may be displayed? Because if you're referring to like what the village does, to me, that's more of a display. And then I don't know if Nathan would weigh on it. Is this, getting the semantics here? But as you were saying, it's really the flagpole we have is not much of a flagpole anymore. And so are we talking about displaying the flag in front of the town hall, or are we talking about flying the flag on the pole? So that's where I would, if this policy is what's presented and then voted on, I would like to flesh that out to say, like at 9, it says flown, at 7, it says flown. So,
I did use flown and not displayed.
yeah,
for-
so I wasn't
so.
sure what you,
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I was hoping that that designation was
Yeah.
clear, the difference between a flagpole and.
Yeah.
So, okay,
Okay.
just to be clear, just to speak on something you said, the only, as under the draft that is proposed, the only responsibility for the town clerk would be that requests are made to the town clerk because the town clerk is our keeper of records.
Uh-huh.
And so she would keep, he or she would keep the record of that. And then it's actually the town supervisor who's responsible for fulfilling, making sure that the actual work happens. So just
Okay,
for what
thank you.
that's worth. I'm sorry, Roxanne, yes.
Oh, no, whenever. There's a weird lag, I'm sorry. It does say displayed in number 3. And so I think it just switches back and forth between those things. To me, it, with all due respect, Michael, to me, it seems they're kind of interchangeable. You could change 7 to say flags may also be displayed to celebrate that because it's specified that only the governmental ones will be flown on the poles. I think it could easily be tweaked to take care of that wording. I think that, I understand the slippery slope argument, but I also think that if we have a policy that a board discusses and feels the flags listed represent diversity, equity, inclusion, heritage and culture, and are in concert with what our surrounding municipalities are doing, and we also hold those values to, or those values, I guess, to be what we also want to display, then I think that there's just so much division and polarization now that I think supporting this kind of diversity and equity, and we just have a new policy on it, a relatively new policy, is a good thing. So I know I can't vote, or maybe there won't even be a vote tonight, but I support this. And yes, another board could amend it, and they'll discuss it, and they'll be on record, and the public will come and say what they think, and that's how government works. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. My intention for this was to have a discussion so that we could receive, the public could have plenty of time to hear what we had to say as board members, and just taking a straw poll based on who's present and able to vote. The policy would not pass tonight. To the best of my understanding, I did not prepare a resolution for its passage, but if
Does it need a resolution?
yes, we would have to adopt it.
Yeah, she has it just for discussion.
I just have it for
Oh,
discussion.
okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have had to write it, right? The board could choose if there were the votes to pass it tonight. But seeing as how that would not work tonight, I did not put it as it's just simply a discussion. We can collect more comments next week or at the next meeting. And my intention is to bring it back to the next agenda. I have spoken to our 5th board member who has also expressed his support for it. Are there any other further comments that anybody would like to make in terms of any additional flags to be added, to be removed from the current list? Any additional comments about what flags may not be flown? Yes.
I'm just curious, I'd like to ask Ann at Tompkins County if there's ever been other requests to fly other flags and how that's been handled at the county level.
So after I took off, it took us almost 2 years to get our flag policy in. I will say that we went, one other thing I wanted to ask, Ann, if you don't mind, be patient with this, was that we went with federally recognized flags as part of our policy. And we did have significant discussion on were people going to come, ask for this, this, and this. And we have had 0 people ask us for different flags than the ones we originally approved. And then we've had a lot of comments, mostly very, very supportive, especially to see Pride and Black History flags flown at the library, public safety building, and the airport.
I would like to note that it will be part of the minutes, the public record, but we received quite a number of comments, all in favor of the flag policy in advance of this meeting via email. Any additional thoughts? Yes, Roxanne.
You're muted.
Sorry. Just it might be a good idea to look into a little farther and clarify that issue that one of the public made a comment on. I think it was Vivian Rose, about the women's suffrage flag in March versus August, and which month and what that, just get clarification on that. That was a point I heard that's worth looking at, just to make sure if we have it in there, we have it right, the month right and all. But other than that, and adding the 6 Nations flag, I don't have any other comments though on adding or taking out. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, thank you very much for everybody's participation on that subject. for the public. The intention is that at the June 28th meeting, this will be back on the agenda, is my intention, with, you know, the tweaks suggested by the board members. Okay, so that's moving us on to another discussion topic, which could turn into a resolution. I did not draft a resolution because I started to, and it seemed like it was becoming gibberish. So I wanted to see if we actually needed a resolution or wanted to. This is related to ARPA potential funding projects, permeable pavement for the town hall parking lot. There has been previous consideration for the fact that our rear parking lot is in terrible disrepair. At some point, it's going to fail past the point of usability. Roxanne requested that the town board discuss, well, we've been talking about permeable pavement for that parking lot for, I think, at least 18 months. But for this particular item on the agenda, Roxanne requested that we discuss asking the Sustainability Committee more formally, Conservation Sustainability, to investigate permeable pavement options for us as a potential use of ARPA funding. So just wanted to open that up to the board.
Well, we have a couple of members on the CSAC committee that have experience and know quite a bit about permeable pavement. And well, at least 3 people that have expressed an interest. We haven't had a meeting though for a while, so I'm trying to light a fire under Mark to get it going so that we can, you know, come back with some recommendations for the board.
Sounds good. Michael, Roxanne, did you have thoughts?
It would have to be something for next year at this point, because it's late enough in the season.
Well, you know, I think that they could, you know, provide input on
Oh, sure.
what's worked in other
Right,
places.
and you should get a copy of the survey that we have
Yeah,
for the lot. You have to check with the neighbors.
Oh, yeah.
And then I
it's
think we should at least have the alternative of traditional pavement versus permeable pavement. So if it turns out to be it's 4 times as expensive, then we should weigh it as far as the cost benefit.
right.
I don't think we should look at permeable pavement because it's sold item.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It
No,
may-
no, no.
It may need to be designed as far as grading and drainage. Might need to look at because I think there is one drain out here, isn't there? I think there's, yeah,
Strawberry?
yeah, what might need to be, like, somebody might need to camera the thing to make sure that it's doesn't need to be dug up.
I can guarantee it's not going to be a simple project. I can
Right.
guarantee it
Yes.
just with the lot lines alone.
Yes, yeah, it's gonna be,
Yeah.
So,
Roxanne, yes, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, well, I mean,
Oh, we can hear you.
Right. Okay, I can't tell if I'm turning it off or not. So, I mean, what I was thinking was that, you know, the CSAC, when you had first brought this up, we had a discussion at the meeting and there was enthusiasm. And as Mary said, people knew, there were several people who knew about it, and there's been a bit more email discussion going. People are contributing in more info. So what I was thinking was, if the board, you know, ask the CSAC specifically, we'd like this, you know, we'd like an evaluation of, you know, options and, you know, maybe a rough estimation of the cost or some, you know, experiences that other places had. And then, you know, we could include in that request, or we can get separately, the staff can, or however you'd prefer, you know, a basic estimate of how much regular pavement costs. But I just thought if the CSAC had some guidance, you know, what was specifically requested, it might make it, you know, go along more quickly and in a more focused way. Because I think the people are really interested in it, and they do have something there, but there's just a lot of emails and this thought and that thought. So maybe would we be asking them to make a little report and ask if they could give it to us by a certain date, or, I mean, last time we had a request from the board, it was to evaluate the charger station options for, charging for it and how much it would cost and all of the associated items with that and the costs. And so we did that. We made like a little report and everything and gave it to the board. So I don't know if that would be helpful in terms of getting more info from them, from the CSAC, to work off of, to decide how much this might cost and if it's feasible.
So something Scott should be.
Yeah.
discussing.
Hi, Rich.
Hi. So I think we need to get, like Michael said, a relationship between what the permeable costs would be versus the non-permeable. And haven't we heard there have been some issues with the non-permeable in certain places in the town?
So I did receive feedback from the state that they are not satisfied with how the permeable pavement is functioning at the visitor center
Right.
at the overlook of the falls. Their permeable pavement, and I am not even close to an expert in any of this, so please take it with a grain of salt. But it's my understanding that there are some proprietary formulas that are used with the different variations on permeable pavement, as in many new building materials. And so they're not all equal, that there are a variety of options out there. And I don't think we want to be the first generation to be testing and being the gopher for a product. I would personally like to see, I'm in favor of permeable pavement if we can afford it. And, if it becomes a reasonable option, because I think it has some great benefits, especially given the topography of how our parking lot is situated with the hillsides, and not wanting water to come off as a sheet. But I think that having some idea of how it's for different products have functioned over time is going to be very useful, so that we're benefiting from someone else's, experimentation. So,
What would
so-
you recommend here?
so my recommendation would be that we request that CSAC investigates permeable pavement options that the town could utilize that have been tested in other locations. It would be great to get some, ballpark estimates. This is how this resolution became very convoluted. It'd be great to get some ballpark estimates on costs associated with installation. I don't think they need to get us costs, frankly, on more traditional methods. I think that's going to be pretty simple for us to do ourselves.
Because Scott would be doing it if.
Well, no, he wouldn't do it, but I've had a conversation with them. They wouldn't be the ones doing it, but they work with contractors who do this.
Oh, okay.
And so it wouldn't be the highway crew who'd be doing the installation, but he would certainly.
Well, he knows like.
Right, exactly. So getting those numbers, I don't think CSAC needs to.
Okay, well, we would need to know, we would need to have the survey
Yeah.
to see,
Yeah,
what
we
kind of
would.
square footage we're talking about.
Right.
And I think having the research done by people who actually know these materials would be incredibly valuable. So understanding what options the town has in terms of different products, where they've been successful in other places, and what kind of money we're looking at would be very useful. You're absolutely right. I think this becomes a budgetary item for 2023. I feel overall less concerned about it if the board, in terms of timing, because I also want to be sensitive that we're going into the first summer after. I mean, we're still very much wearing masks in town hall, but I know that a lot of people are taking advantage of travel this summer and things like that, and so I want to be sensitive to volunteers' time. So it would be great to have it, this information before budget season. But if it wasn't available, because the previous discussion has revolved around using ARPA funding for it, it kind of gives us a little bit more flexibility. Would the board be interested in potentially using ARPA funding for this project?
I am, yeah.
I was fine with that. I just didn't want to make the assumption that everyone also
Do we
was.
have a deadline on that, spending that?
It's 2026,
Oh,
so we're fine.
anytime.
Yeah. Yeah, so do you want to put I think my resolution started like 5 minutes ago. Do you want to put a date on when we would like to get some feedback back
I
from
like the
CSAC?
idea of
Like,
a number, something that we can work with for budget season.
so in August,
Yeah, that's
2 months?
That's
Roxanne, does
fine.
that seem reasonable to you?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to give, that was my thought, is to give them some structure and a timeline. And I mean, if it's not possible, because as you say, vacations and all, then it'll get extended. But I think that's really good to shoot for budget season. So August into September.
So then I will
And
go back.
I would support I'm sorry.
No,
again
that's
with the
fine.
lag. I would support using the ARPA funds as long as it's, we have to see what the cost is. But we need to do something with the parking lot either way, so.
Okay, great. So I guess I'm just going to move a very simple resolution, which is that we request that CSAC investigates permeable pavement options for the town and report back to us, including costs, with a ballpark of late August.
So
All those in favor, any further discussion?
Well, I think in there, we need to include an evaluation of what's working in other municipalities and what's not.
Well, there is permeable pavement at Cornell that I've heard is working, and also the parking lot across from Island Health and Fitness, I think was mentioned. I could be wrong. Maybe I should strike that. But I do know there's a couple of parking lots at Cornell that use permeable
Yeah,
pavement.
I'll check with our civil guy upstairs.
Okay.
See if I can grab their spec. And see, I think we've had it for a couple of seasons now. So we'll see how
Great.
they feel like it's
Yeah,
holding up.
well then Mike can move make a tweak to the motion that permeable pavement options that have been successfully used in other locations.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's cool.
should I send that to you?
Sure.
Okay, great. So all those in favor?
All right.
Bye.
Oh, Rich, I'm sorry you can't vote because we went out of the governor has not extended the emergency declaration.
Okay.
And so that's where we are without posting your address, but you are fully welcome to participate remotely and we are glad you were here also. Thank you so
Okay.
much to both of you for making time tonight when you are adventuring or working in other places.
All right, cool.
Okay, well, I've got to tell you, Rich, I think it's because you're not here. We are moving through our agenda. I think you have been
Move
our
it.
holdup.
Yeah, I'm not the holdup. Good, move it.
We are moving on then to official staff reports and announcements. The staff reports, my report, highway report, clerk's report, were all provided in the packet. The one thing I wanted to let the board know is that Rich and I, the position, the planner position opening closed. And we have been doing 30-minute interviews with the candidates who applied. We're doing them, Rich and I have been doing them remotely. We're finishing them up at the end of this week to kind of narrow the pool down. And then we're going to be scheduling in-person half-day sessions with an option for board members to attend, representatives from our planning and BZA to attend. And so everybody will get that information as those start trickling out. And anybody can attend remotely or in person who's interested in doing that. Because their interviews were allowed to meet in executive session. But we will not be taking any action at those meetings. So did anybody have any questions about that process?
So how many interviews?
5. We had 5 good candidates.
Oh, great.
Yep.
That's changed.
Well, I mean, 5 is, we would have loved to see more, always.
You got something.
Exactly. And so that is more than double what we had previously. So
Yeah.
I'm taking it for a win.
Yeah.
We're certainly not there yet, but everybody has much desire to get a good person in place. Were there any other members of the board who would like to make a comment on anything related to what they've been up to? I have one more thing at the very end, but I'll wait till the end.
I just thought I would mention that Caitlin and I met with Monica Roth and talked about reforming the Ag Committee. So she was going to give us a list. She has or had a list and of farmers in Ulysses that she was going to get together and send to us. And I also contacted Debbie Biltman to see if she could give me a list of farmers market farmers who are located in Ulysses. And she said that she suspected that most of them did not live in Ulysses.
Okay.
Or farm in Ulysses. So
Right.
anyway, so hopefully that will result in something as far as the Ag Committee reforming. And then I don't know if people knew this or not, but the Jessica Giles, who's on the village board, resigned to become the deputy clerk, deputy treasurer. It's a full-time job at the village. And Rorden appointed Marcia Horn, who lives on Halsey Street, and whose father was actually on the town board or on the village board when I was on the village board back 20 years ago. Maybe not quite 20, but a while ago. I guess that's about it.
Wonderful. Thank you for remembering the Ag Committee. I don't think I included that in my report, so I appreciate you bringing that up and for organizing that meeting. Michael or Roxanne or Rich, did you guys have anything else you wanted to share?
Roxanne and I met once on the special events permits, and I've reached out to the Tompkins County Sheriff, and then was awaiting Roxanne's return from her bike trip, and we're going to meet again hopefully next week
That's
to
great.
continue with that.
Okay. So as you progress forward and want to bring it back as an agenda item,
Okay.
that,
we'll go
just
over
let
with
me
you
know.
first.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. And you're also have carte blanche, right, to reach out to Nate as well for any legal
Okay.
language
Yeah,
you
we
need.
want to meet with Mark too at some point.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mark will be traveling, so just make sure to touch base. He's got a scheduled vacation coming up, so
Okay, thank you.
we can work around that. Great. Roxanne, was there anything, or Rich, was there anything you guys wanted to share?
I'm good.
Yeah, I just in terms of sort of sustainability, energy, those sort of issues. Rick Darfler is sort of leading an effort to try to have some DC fast chargers installed in the village as part of this funding grant opportunity that's out there. And so he's, trying to get to fill in everybody, like people on the village board, the town board. So he's been talking to me about a meeting so I could find out what he's thinking, because I work with him on the library sustainability committee, and the library is also part of this. So I don't know what the thinking is in terms of the locations, but I'm going to find out because he's having a meeting on Wednesday. So I'll bring that back to the board and let you know if there's any involvement by our board that needs to be considered by the whole board. He's very hot on trying to have DC chargers in the village. So fast electric chargers. And I've been, I have met with Clean Energy Communities, our support person, and the Climate Smart Community support person, and have a pretty good list of things we could do to end up like moving to the next level of points that would make us eligible for grants. And so mostly it's a lot of documentation that needs to be done. And so I started working on that, but and we'll continue to, and hopefully get some help from some folks on the CSAC there. And I put some time into looking into this comprehensive plan grant with sustainability, and that was partly from a conversation with the Climate Smart Communities coordinator. And the town of Ithaca is organizing another meeting soon on the just to keep updating municipalities on where they're at with their community choice, the city and town with their community choice aggregation roadmap and plan. And so I think that that's in the end of June. So anyway, just to keep us in the loop of what they're thinking. Nothing is happening quickly there. I think that they were thinking by October, they may have something more concrete that they might want to bring to municipalities educationally to think more about this, but they're still working through a lot of details. So that's what I have.
Great, thank you so much. The final thing I wanted to say was I had the opportunity to go to the fire EMS banquet, and it was just such a pleasure to be there, because then like a week later I had them in front of my house where an accident happened. And it always makes you appreciate them in times of an emergency. The people who at my house were fine ultimately, which is very good. But it was really great to be at the fire banquet, because it really helped clarify something, because we haven't been able to gather in groups for the last couple of years, of how many people in our community, in the fire department, and doing EMS, and in so many different aspects of our civic and recreational and communal lives, of people who are doing good work that we frequently just don't see if we're not in that group. And it was so heartening to see people that I periodically run into at school functions or in the grocery store, and realize that they are dedicating not a small amount, but a large amount of time to responding to calls and to being there when people need them at inconvenient hours and at, in inconvenient periods of time, which is certainly an inconvenience for the person needing help also. And so it was just a wonderful evening, and it was lovely to be there. And I am very deeply grateful for them and for the people who are serving all over our community that we just frankly don't necessarily see, because that's not where we're intersecting with them. So it was a wonderful night. Moving on, we have our upcoming events. The town will be observing Juneteenth on the 20th of June, not on the 19th, which is the actual holiday, and Roxanne's daughter's birthday. We are doing it the 20th. So I don't think I will ever forget your daughter's birthday. She has never met me, but I know her birthday.
I know.
So, Town Hall will be closed that day in observance. And then our next board meeting is on June 28th, followed by our first meeting of July on the 12th. So next up, we have approval of the minutes. And we had the meeting minutes were provided for our regular May 24th, 2022 meeting. Did anybody have any alterations to them? Or corrections? I didn't. So I will move to approve those meeting minutes. All those in favor? Aye. And then that takes us to budget modifications. Those here received a couple budget modifications. The first one relates to workers' compensation. Workers' compensation is a bit challenging to budget. We have not gone overall how much the compensation is, workers' comp payment is, but we have to change which lines it's coming out of in order to cover the expenses, because we needed more in the DB fund. I am actively trying to avoid learning too much about I feel like that it is a rabbit hole to get down into it. But basically, not all jobs are considered equal in terms of how much liability and therefore how much workers' comp insurance is needed, because obviously not every job is equal in terms of risk factors and things like that. And so we are needing to increase that budget line by $809 to cover that, which again, we're still within our lines, or we're still within our overall expenditures. And then we are taking that out of the employee health insurance. We have anticipated savings in that line because of, we always budget for, you know, a certain number of people using health insurance. And then if all of those individuals don't use health insurance, plus the bonus we put in, then we have extra on a year-to-year basis. So that's the first one from the DB fund. The second budget modification is from the SW3 fund. And it refers to overage in this line due to unbudgeted but needed spill pallet procurement. Extra funds requested in this line to limit future budget modifications for day-to-day operational expenses. So the goal is to increase this by $300. And it's coming out the contingency for the Water District 3. And it's the hope is that we don't have to keep coming back to you with relatively small amounts related to this line. So we're aiming for this as the last modification for this particular thing.
So the overage is only less than $4, but we're putting $300 in this line.
Yes.
anticipating
Yes,
future.
because it's going to keep happening and we don't want to keep doing it for $3.77. Yes.
Right, I would support that.
Yes, Michael.
After we move to seconded, I have my hand raised for the discussion phase.
Okay, excellent. So I will move these budget modifications. Is there a second?
Yeah.
Okay, further discussion.
A favor to ask when we budget, but the budget season this year, if what we did in the previous year was carve up the District 3 into what I felt is too many little lines,
Uh-huh.
and you're gonna get annoying things like this. And that we would actually reconsolidate some of that. So when you take it down to the 0.44 line, in my opinion, it's too small,
Mhm.
it's too granular. And, you know, I agree with you, $3.77 overages. So I think we should just group it back up.
Okay,
Because all this, the expenses are all relatively small. And anything big's probably gonna come to us anyway.
I do know, I mean, I feel like it's been super small and super granular my entire time. And so it's my understanding that prior incarnations of the board really wanted to get into those granular details. If the current board is feeling more comfortable being less granular with Water District 3, then I certainly won't argue with you on this subject.
Yeah, I mean, a budget of $500.
Yeah.
Small.
Especially now with the current inflation and things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. I will certainly discuss that further and I am reluctant to say absolutely only because I don't know if there are any
Right.
extenuating things, but I certainly hear what you say. I support what you're saying. So is there any further discussion on the modifications? Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And then that brings us to payment of audited claims. And this is the resolution related to the payment of audited claims. And my two board members present,
Yeah. All right.
or their reviewers.
We just move it?
Yeah, I'll
Is
just
there a number that we
Um,
move?
move,
Nope, it'll get assigned afterwards.
Okay. So we have, what, do we need to do?
Oh,
two?
okay, yeah, so if your resolution's right there.
Oh,
I'm
right
sorry,
in
I'm,
front of us.
oh,
Okay.
that number, I'm
Okay.
sorry, I thought you meant resolution number,
Okay.
I'm like, yeah.
oh,
Resolve that the Ulysses Town Board has reviewed and approves payment of claims for the HA Fund aerator project, vouchers 45 and 46, in the amount of $11,725.20. And for all other funds, vouchers number 238 through 292, in the amount of $76,607.82.
Is there a second?
Second.
Sure.
The, so our system's out of warranty probably
Yeah.
with the sure temp thing?
Yep.
Okay, thank you for calling them. They seem to be a whole lot better than what the person we used to use.
Chris was jumping for joy when, I mean, not literally,
Yeah,
but I could
think they're
hear,
very competent people.
enthusiasm.
So then so are we refunding $4,000 for the Justice Court program?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so are we looking to do that some other way? or how's that?
Yes, so what I would like to do is I would like to use funds that were earmarked for other purposes this year, such as there's at least $6,000 sitting in furniture for the conference room. I would like to make it a priority to get a handicap accessible door on this building. I think it's appalling that we don't have one. And I think the grant would have been great, but for a myriad reasons, in 2021, it just did not become possible. It's a very small scale grant. There's not going to be any impact. We have confirmed there's not going to be any impact in future funding. It's apparently super normal to not be able to use these, especially in the last 2 years. So they're not going to penalize us if we go after additional court funds. It just didn't become possible, and the court, it's going to basically be about $10,000 to do a publicly accessible, ADA accessible door. I would just like to find the money. I have at least $6,000 in a pool, find the other money, bring it to you for budget modifications, and let's just do this project.
So one favor to ask with that
Sure.
is that when we do that, if we can, because we have some nice building standards here, if we can remove the exposed conduit in the corridor.
Oh, okay.
Because I think it looks terrible.
Okay.
My 2 cents.
Make it a package project.
Well, we should feed it out of the backside of your office,
Okay.
which I think we can do. What is this one for? Oh, the bus passes. Are those just for the recreation program?
Yeah, I think they're for the staff.
Is that, okay,
It's right for
Yeah, it was
free.
in Will's report,
Yep.
I think.
Yep.
okay, I
Yep.
didn't get that far down the
Yeah.
request. All right.
Yeah, it's great. Kids ride for free this year, which is the unanticipated savings,
Yeah.
which is
Those are all
awesome.
my questions. Thank you.
Wonderful. Those are great questions.
I have a question. What are we gonna be able to come in town hall and not wear masks?
Well, I mean, the policies remain in effect in large measure because of staff comfort, honestly, because of the court. And the court, it requires it. And they have not, the court system hasn't eliminated it. So every court individual who's coming in to deal with the court office, even for an inquiry or anything like that, is required to mask. And there's no way to, it's very complicated for people to have to say, are you masking? Are you not? And for someone to be at the clerk's door, the town clerk's door without a mask, and in front of the court clerk's office with a mask.
Yeah.
And I can also say from personal experience, we had a number of cases in town hall for various reasons that, people experience this truly wretched disease, but we have no confirmed cases of transmission because of our masking requirement. And I consider that a win. So I think my personal 2 cents would be that as long as the court is required to mask, it just makes it easier.
Okay, I didn't realize that the court.
Yeah.
had that requirement.
Yep. So that's kind of where we are, but I'm sorry, we kind of moved off of, it's a great question though. We need to actually do a vote on paying our bills. We had a motion, we had a second, so all those in favor?
Right.
Aye. Excellent.
We're not gonna be able to do 13 without our designated.
Oh, I know.
I know. What are we gonna do?
We'll just sit here till he gets back. No, we're just gonna sit here till he gets back. But he's back late Thursday. So that brings us to our second privilege of the floor with the 3-minute limit per person. Is there anybody from the public who would like to address us? Serena. Oh, do you want to come? And I was inviting, you missed the first because you missed the first one. I was bringing people on up here because you have a mic and then they can see you if you're in person.
Hello, I am Cynthia Menino. I live on Tamarack Lane in Trumansburg, and I'm speaking as a community member. With all respect, I'm in support of the flag policy draft, and I'd like to note that the pride flag is not a special interest flag. A special interest flag would be for a club. The pride flag reflects our family, friends, and neighbors, and the pride flag shows harmony and spirit of gender identity and sexual orientation of all people around the world. So I do So I'm so glad that the board is interested in the flag policy. And I'm so happy to hear that there is support for the pride flag on the board. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm gonna let, Karen has her hand raised. So please feel free to address us. There you go.
Thank you. I just wanted to share that I'm a resident on Falls Road, and I wanted to share that I recently sent another letter to Caitlin and also a copy to the clerk regarding the committee that is addressing the special events law amendment. I was hoping to, I attended the meeting in April, and I was hoping to hear back from the committee that is reviewing these options. Maybe we're at the end of June almost. So just looking for feedback on the amendment, and I was looking forward to, I support that there should be changes in the law, and that we should be proactive and not reactionary. It should not be based around just one, event or one type of event, but covers something that applies to what is good for all of our community. I like the idea of that this type of larger event, that it does not apply to like somebody's birthday party or something, but that it's the larger events that are not fit for this type of community, and that they should have to apply at least 30 days in advance. I know that there was a huge discussion about it at previous meetings last spring. And now that we're getting into kind of the summer season with the kind of more, when there's more types of events like this that take place, it just seems to me that maybe this kind of the discussion or the process might have taken too long to even apply to the summer season. I'd also like to ask that with the events that will be taking place on Falls Road in the near future, within the next month, if we could look at, again, the no parking signs up and down the road, and also maybe a reduced speed limit. I know that's a problem as far as permanent, but at least a temporary due to the event. But also because this road tends to be up and down, but back and forth in the park, and people are, zipping out of the park, maybe in the near future, looking at something as more of a permanent lower speed limit posting. And I will have to say, just to finalize that, when I first moved onto this road 20 years ago, I do recall that there was painting down the road, like double lines, passing lines, whatnot. There were divider lines in the middle of the road. And then a number of years ago, our road got repaved and the lines were never reposted. And due to the number of hills and curves on this road, I think it would be a really good idea if the highway people could look into at least putting our lines back on the road again. So thank you for my opportunity.
Thank you very much for joining us. And your comments, the letter you sent in, I did share with the rest of the town board as well.
Thank you.
Legislator Corman.
Thank you for letting me speak again, Ann Corman. I concur that it probably doesn't look good to have an electrical conduit going through the hall. It also might not look good in the supervisor's office. It also doesn't look good, and it won't, to me, look good if there's not a unanimous vote to pass the flag policy at your next meeting. That will not look good. Another thing I wanted to address was the mention of special interest. And I looked up the definition of special interest, and it's about a small group of people getting special advantages. And there has been a group over in our history that has gotten special advantages. And so I would call them a special interest group. And who that group has been is straight white men. And to a lot of people, that's what that flag
Right on.
represents, is the interest of straight white men. And for years, people have not felt that that represents them. And that's part of what having a flag policy and a diversity statement and a policy for municipalities, that partially addresses those issues. And so people in your community need this. I'm speaking as someone possibly the only LGBTQ person in the room, so I wanted to speak up again. This is minimal. This is like a minimal thing, you know, towards equity. And I'll speak, you know, from, it's not special advantages to ask to have the right to marry. Years ago, I was not able to have my partner able to get her insured because I didn't have equity. Wasn't a special advantage to get married. It's not a special advantage to have insurance. That's equity. It's not a special advantage to be able to use a non-gendered bathroom or to have a place to change. It's not a special advantage to not see your family being sold off and never seeing them again, and not having the choice or the ability to be paid for your work. So these are not special advantages. This is equity. And I implore board members here to please do some research on what diversity, equity, and inclusion means. There is so much now all over the internet. Watch a video, please. And with that, I will say, with knowledge, you will gain more empathy and more solidarity with your community. And so it's just things, you just have not had the education. I'm not trying to be hard on folks. I'm just trying to say you don't have the education that is readily available out there. I implore the town to look at joining the Tompkins County Diversity Consortium. We are members, and I go, and it's I think once a month on a Friday for an hour and a half. And we take turns going, different members of the county. And I learn something every time. There's so much more for me to learn. I'm not an expert, and I apologize if I said something that is not as educated as I could be. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any, I think every member of the public has had an opportunity to speak in this public comment period, or privilege of the floor period. So we are deeply sad, Rich, that you are not here for this, but I will have to turn it over to my compatriots on the town board to stand in his place.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
And we are adjourned at 8:55 p.m.